Good morning in Israel, good night in America. Last night we started a beautiful lesson, Likutey Moharan, a very important one, which speaks about Achdut, speaks about unity, and really gets to the core of some of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings and Hasidus in general, which is what is the real benefit of this new expression of Torah, which was very threatening to people at the time that the Baal Shem Tov innovated this, and still is threatening to people now. Part of the reason is because the more truth that comes into the world, the more the opposite is also coming in. And Rabbi Nachman says the reason is to afford us with free will. Because if it was so obvious who the tzaddik was or where the truth was, so everybody would run there. So it has to be that there's some type of confusion or machloket surrounding it. And that's why most of the greatest tzaddikim, while they were alive, were surrounded by tremendous controversy. So one of the big chidushim of the Baal Shem Tov was that all of his teachings and all of his students' teachings, and Befrat, specifically Rabbi Nachman, his teachings are saturated with yichudim. Rabbi Nachman alluded to this many times when he would come and bring his students and he would say to them, do you guys notice the kavanot of the Arizal here? Do you notice the kavanot of the Arizal here? Do you notice the sod which is saturated here? And most times his students didn't see it, and then he would explain it to them. So I even heard once that Rabbi Yitzhak Meir Morgenstern was maybe the biggest Kabbalist in the world. He lives in Eretz Yisrael, and he's an expert in Breslov Chassidut amongst all Chassidut and Kabbalah. And he said that when the Baal Shem Tov spoke to the Mashiach, and the Mashiach said to him, I want you to take this chutza, meine sefer, chutza, that I want you to spread these teachings far and wide, and that I want the Jewish people to create yichudim like you. And when the Jewish people are doing yichudim like you, and this Torah is spread throughout the world, then I'm going to come. So Rabbi Morgenstern said that he feels that Chabad has excelled the most and actualized this directive from the Mashiach to spread the teachings across the world. And that's why we see so many Chabads all over. So they are like the actualizing of this part of what the Baal Shem Tov was told. And then the second part of the Yichudim, that the Jewish people, no matter what level they're holding at, no matter how far they are from you, that everyone should be able to perform Yichudim like you, the Baal Shem Tov, which was the cause of his despair, not the going out and bringing the Torah everywhere. That for him didn't seem so overwhelming. But that everybody would be able to perform Yichudim, these spiritual unifications, which is a very deep mystical practice, that everyone should be able to do that. This made him very, very worried and concerned. And the Mashiach told him not to be worried, it's going to happen. So Rabbi Morgenstern says, where is the fulfillment of that in our generation? Where do we see that that is coming true? He says this is Bifrat, specifically with the teachings of Breslov Chassidut, that this is the essence of Rabbi Nachman's teachings, that they create these yichudim for all of his students and everyone who practices his teachings without even knowing it. So when you go to do hibodedut, you're creating these yichudim. When you are doing tikkun chatzot, when you are learning b'koach, when you're praying with energy and strength, all of these things that we've learned so far are really to bring these yichudim, to bring these unifications. So what are we trying to bring a unification of? We know that in the physical world, everything is disparate, everything is separate, everything is mifrad, it's distinct and separate. And that's the cause of suffering in the world. That's the cause of suffering within our own minds about what's happening here. That's the cause of suffering with our health. When things are not functional, it's because there's not a connection, there's no harmony in the body. In the physical world, you see that there's so much hatred, and there's so much anger, and there's so much jealousy and judgment, and all of that comes from a lack of unity. But all of that lack of unity, it's got to be a reflection of something spiritual, because everything in the physical world is like a mirror to the spiritual world. So what is it that's broken upstairs, so to speak, that's pouring down here, and we're experiencing that in our lives? And the answer is that Hashem's name is separate, that Yud Kei Vav Kei is distinct. However, once we bring together the letters of Hashem's name, then we're going to have a revelation of peace and unity and harmony down here below. This is all alluded to in the Shema Yisrael, that the tikkun for this is Shema, because we close our eyes to this world, and we close our eyes to the separation, we close our eyes to the distinction, we close our eyes to the bad, and we're saying, hear Israel, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one. And not that Hashem's the only one versus another God, but that everything is part of Hashem's unity, everything is part of Hashem's oneness. So we're declaring our belief in this. And then we whisper, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed, that Hashem, his desires are the cause of everything that takes place in this world. Like Tikkuni Zohar says that he's the Ilah of all Ilaot, which they came out with a song, I think, Yishay Ribo, he has a famous song now, Sibata Sibot, which my kids love, that he's the cause of all causes, that he's the initiator of all things that are initiated, meaning to say that even if there is some physical cause or some natural cause or some cause by the free will choice of a person, still the cause of that cause is Hashem. And this is what we're declaring when we say Shema Yisrael. Now, on a very deep level, this is referring to two levels of unity, that everything in spirituality is always reflecting two levels, the male and the female, the transcendent and the immanent, the potential and the realized or actualized. In this case, Shema Yisrael is the potential. That's the male aspect of spirituality. That's the transcendent aspect, the part of Hashem that's infinite and never changes, and yet it's not realized or actualized or experienced in our lives. That's Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. That's the upper level of unity. We're going to see this connected to Avraham Avinu later on in this lesson. And then Avraham had a servant, his name was Eliezer, and he represents the lower level of unity. He represents Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed. He represents the feminine aspect of unity, which might be on the one hand a lower level, but not lower in the sense that it's not as important or it's not as valuable. It's lesser in quality or quantity. It's just that it's not transcendent, it's immanent. So in the fact that whenever something is immanent, meaning you can experience it or feel it, that means that it's a feminine type of phenomenon. So that's Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed. And how did Shema start? It started when Yaakov Avinu was trying to tell his children and wanted to tell them all the secrets of the end of times, how the Mashiach was going to come, when the Mashiach was going to come, how the Geula was going to take place. But he wasn't sure if his sons were at the level to be able to hear such a thing. So for them, they showed him that they were by declaring to their father, Yisrael, that's why it says Shema Yisrael, listen, Yisrael, meaning our father, Hashem is our God, Hashem is one, meaning we understand, we internalize the fact that Hashem is one, that no matter what happens in our lives, and no matter what's going on in society, and no matter how broken and destructive everything looks, we understand this is all somehow a part of Hashem's plan. It's for the ultimate good, and it's going to bring us to the ultimate good. That's the level of transcendence, because we can't experience that in a felt way. It comes from Emunah, belief, right? But then there is Yaakov's response, Yisrael's response, when he realized that they understood. So he said, Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto L'Olam Va'ed. He brought down this revealed aspect. Okay. So now, Rabbi Nachman says that this unity can only come into being through speech. There's no way to come to this unity, which is really the result of deep Torah understanding, except through excelling in the area of speech. Rabbi Nachman said, he often emphasized speech. He said that his whole mission was tefillah. And in Likutey Eitzot, Rav Natan quoted his Rabbi, Rav Nachman, as saying, speech has tremendous power. Speak many words of Torah, recite many prayers, make all kinds of appeals and entreaties to Hashem, And more than anything else, talk to Hashem in your own language. He says, if you are determined and you don't give up and you make a practice of this every day of your life, you will certainly attain the ultimate good, both in this world and the world to come. Okay? So obviously you don't get stronger advice than that. And we see that this is why Rabbi Nachman's students are insistent on having that conversation every day with Hashem. Because this was Rabbi Nachman's whole mission, was to bring us to the understanding that through speech, everything heals, that through speech, everything is rectified. And this is alluded to by Rav Chaim Vital, the Arizal's main student, who's the source of all of his teachings that we have. And he said in the final generation, the whole generation is going to be busy with the avodah of tefillah. What's the reason? Because tefillah is what heals ultimately. Tefillah is what unites. Tefillah is what brings people together. It's all through prayer. Now, Rabbi Nachman's going to say now, but it's not just prayer. It's prayer that's true. When you speak out the truth, when you pray the truth, that's what heals. And what's the truth? It's the Torah. So Rabbi Nachman says, he brings the Gemara from the Erevin, which brings the Pasuk, Motzi Ehem, Bapeh. So he says, there's going to be chayim, there's going to be life for those who speak them. This is what Shlomo Melech says. So speaks them with his mouth. So when the Jewish people speak out the Torah with their mouth, meaning they pray, they turn Torah into tefillah, then they're going to be enlightened by the Torah that they're learning. Then they're going to find life from it. There's a famous story of Bruria. She was maybe the biggest tzadikah, the biggest, the woman who attained the highest spiritual level in the Gemara, who was one of the Tanaim's wives. And she even gives her husband advice in the Torah and rebukes him in the Talmud, in the Gemara. And the husband admits that she was right. There's another time that she saw someone was learning Torah but wasn't saying it out loud. And she admonished him, saying that this is not going to be a help for you unless you say these words out loud. So we see from this how important it is to speak out the Torah. And what we learned is that the Torah itself, so to speak, reflects that upper unity, but it's only in potential. And when a person speaks out the Torah that he learns, he reveals the unity in actuality. So this is the two steps. It's pray, learn, pray. I'm going to pray, but the prayers that I'm going to pray are going to come from the Torah. They're going to come from the truth. And you can actually feel this in a real way. If you just pray, speaking from your own lackings, then often you go into deeper despair because of it. But if you take, let's say, Rabbi Nachman's Torah and you turn it into tefillah, then you'll feel after the Hippolyte you have more hope and you have more joy and you have more energy and you have more excitement and you feel better about what's going on. You feel more faith. And the reason is because you've taken the truth and turned it into prayer. And Hashem says that whoever speaks to me in truth, I'm going to answer him. And he doesn't just mean, according to Rabbi Nachman, that you're speaking from your heart. It means that your mom is saying the truth. And there's no truth besides the Torah. So when you speak out words of Torah, it brings you to tikkun, it brings you to rectification, it brings you to teshuvah. And he says that even a person who's on a very, very low spiritual level, through speech, he can go up from madrega to madrega to madrega, from level to level to level, and come to deep Torah understanding. And this for us is not even a hypothesis, because we see in many people in our generation, and even speaking for myself, people who come from not just the most secular places, but the most broken of places. They come from abuse and they come from trauma and they come from atheism and they come from broken families and they come from a complete deficit of spirituality. They're totally blemished in the area of sexuality because of what is promoted in society today. All of these different things. And yet you see that the biggest students of Rabbi Nachman, right, people who are Balei Tshuva, they are some of the most famous and some of the most effective teachers of Torah in the entire world. And they are what's helping people in our generation really come close to Hashem. And they have achieved tremendous Torah understanding despite coming from such low spiritual levels. And what's the reason for that? If you ask every single one of them, me included, you're only going to hear one answer. He bodedut. Because I talk to Hashem every single day. And if you do this every day, no matter where you're holding, you're going to go from level to level to level. And the secret is because Rabbi Nachman says that your speech is the Shekhinah itself. When a Jew speaks from their heart, what's coming out of them is the feminine revelation of God in the world. It's literally Hashem that's coming out of your mouth. So as a result of that, what does Hashem want? Hashem wants that you should become more healthy, that you should become happier, that you should elevate spiritually. So within a Jew's own speech in there, Hibodedut, when they talk to Hashem about what I need to do to heal, what I need to do to get better, automatically Rabbi Nachman says they're going to have Ruach HaKodesh. Every Jewish man and woman is going to have an element of deep spiritual intuition, which is going to infuse their speech and guide them themselves on what to do. Almost like if you ask somebody for Eitzah, almost like the speech that you have is a separate entity than you. That it's not going to be you that's speaking, it's going to be Hashem speaking through you. And then you're going to know how to come to deeper and deeper Torah understanding. So,
no, I like around like Kalmus.
Did you have a question? Oh, sorry, someone was speaking.
Who are you talking to? Hello?
Hi, yeah, someone's speaking during the class. I was just wondering if you had a question.
What was it, me?
Maybe, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, no problem. I'm going to put everybody in mute. No problem.
Rabbi Kalmus.
Yes.
Is this a good time to ask a question?
You could ask a question before we move on. Go ahead.
So you're articulating the idea that in our Hisbodedus we speak out Torah to Hashem. So if we are in a sugya of, let's say, Gemara, very difficult, is that a good time to like take a break from like the Limud HaTorah and like go into Hisbodedus, or is it better to wait till the end of the Limud HaTorah and kind of keep them separate?
Both. Ultimately, the more that you internalize that this thing that's Hibodedut is not a fad, and it's not a theoretical high spiritual practice, but it's actually a Jew's life, one of constantly speaking to Hashem, the more blessing you're going to see and the more understanding you're going to see. For sure, Rabbi Nachman, whenever he struggled to learn something, and it's interesting, and it's going to give you a lot of chizuk, a lot of encouragement. If you look at Rabbi Nachman's biography, it's called Chaim Moharan. In Hebrew, it's called Tzaddik in English. And you're going to see that every single thing that he learned when he was a kid was hard for him. And what did he used to do when he was not able to understand the Torah? He would go out, he'd cry to Hashem until he got understanding. So, for sure, when you're learning Gemara as well, you might think to yourself, well, this is not practical. This is very difficult. This is very theoretical. So this is not what he means by gaining understanding in the Torah that's going to help me in my life. But Rabbi Nachman makes it clear in other places in Likutey Moharan that every piece of Torah you need. And if you don't need it, somebody else needs it. And in fact, when you say out a piece of Torah, whether it's from the oral or written Torah, that's somebody's root of their soul. And whenever you speak out that piece of Torah, it illuminates that root of that soul, and then they're awakened to want to come close to Hashem. So let's say one of us did teshuvah, let's say all of us are balei teshuvah. So what is it that brought us here now learning these classes? It's because somebody somewhere in the world said over the Torah, which is really the root of your soul. It's a very, very deep concept, and Bezrat Hashem will speak about it in another lesson in Likutey Moharan. But you should do both. You should take a break if you're having a hard time understanding, say out what you're learning. And also later, when you have your hour of Hibodedut, you should talk to Hashem about it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good question. Okay. So now Rabbi Nachman says like this. There's a story in the Gemara, fascinating story. We know that in Mitzrayim, magic or sorcery was a big thing, as opposed to now where it's like a joke and people hire them for children's birthday parties and celebrations. In Mitzrayim, it was a big thing. It was a big, big thing. Like the way that we look at celebrities or sports athletes or musicians, that was like magicians then. And it wasn't magic like I'm going to do a card trick for you. It was really like illusionary things that made you feel very much that it has a power in the world, that you can use this to achieve and attain certain things in your life. So when Moshe Rabbeinu came to Mitzrayim, these two Egyptians, they said to Moshe, Teven ata machnis lafarayim. You're going to bring straw to Afarayim, meaning to say there's already straw here, meaning we already have something which is great, which is very captivating, which all the people in Mitzrayim believe in. And you're going to bring Emunah here. You should bring Emunah somewhere else where they don't have anything, where you have nothing else to compete against. Go to a small market and start your business. Why are you going to come to the big market where we're already the world power and we've utilized this form of our own faith in order to bring people to whatever we're trying to achieve? And Moshe's response to them was, Amre anashe. People say, Lamata yarka shuka. In the vegetable market, take vegetables to sell. Where should you sell vegetables? In the vegetable market. Why? Because people are going to appreciate good vegetables there because they've tasted the other vegetables. So Moshe's response was, no, I'm going to bring Emunah here because people are going to know that there is a vacuum of Emunah here. They're going to feel that from whatever it is that you're giving over. So I'm going to bring over Emunah here, and we're going to see that it's much greater and it's much more intense than anything that you have. Lachavdil, just as an example, we have like the Kabbalah Center. We know that there are thousands of people, if not more, across the world who are invested in the teachings of the Kabbalah Center. Many celebrities are interested in it. They get tremendous chizuk and encouragement from it. And part of the reason is because it is a lot of the teachings of Kabbalah, like we learn, without any of the responsibility of doing mitzvot or any of the social responsibility or things like this. It's just teachings which are encouraged and are based on very esoteric concepts. Now, you might say, let's say we brought Rabbi Nachman's Breslov Hasidus there. They say, we already have mysticism. So why are you going to bring Breslov Hasidus here? Go to somewhere where they don't have it. We already have it. We know what it is. And the answer is when difficulties and challenges come their way, they have nothing to lean on. Because enlightenment, consciousness, like they like to speak about, that's wonderful. That's great when you feel good. But Hashem is going to make you in a situation, he's going to put you in situations where, like Rabbi Nachman says, consciousness is going to go into exile. And now is not the time for understanding. Now is the time for faith. And if you don't teach about faith without understanding, so then they're always going to be at a deficit. And they're always going to be challenged, and they're never going to have answers for those. Even when I was in Queens, I had somebody who was very into the teachings at the Kabbalah Center. He spoke about consciousness all the time, and he spoke about kavanot, and he spoke about what to have in mind during the Torah lessons. He just tell me all the time, David, it's all about consciousness. And then one time, unfortunately, his grandson fell down the stairs, and he hurt himself, and he was in the hospital. He was very scared, and he came to me, and he said, I don't know what to do. Do you have any advice? I told him, I said, I also am a big fan of consciousness. I'm also a big fan of mysticism. But now you need Emunah. And I said, you're not going to get Emunah from the Kabbalah Center. You get Emunah from Rabbi Nachman. You get Emunah from Hibodedut. You get Emunah from the Tzaddikim. So, he heard me. And this is what Moshe was saying. Moshe was saying, no, I'm going to bring it to the vegetable market. In fact, there's a famous story, Rabbi Nachman, he gave over this whole mashal about how when Mashiach comes, everybody's going to be in a big tumult. People are going to be very confused because they thought it was going to be this Haredi, ultra-Orthodox from birth, Jewish person with lineage going back thousands of years. And it sounds like from Rabbi Nachman, pretty explicitly, it's not going to be like that. And it's not going to be what anybody expects it to be. And as a result of that, the majority of people are going to be very, very, very flustered when he comes. However, Rabbi Nachman says, my students are going to be very, very, very much at peace. That when the Mashiach comes, it's going to be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. So why? Rabbi Nachman says, because it's like if you go to a wine tasting event, and there they give you all these different wines to taste, but you've already tasted Hungarian wine. I guess Hungary had very good wine, or the best wine. You already had Hungarian wine, and you come to this wine tasting, and they give you German wine, and they give you Austrian wine, they give you Polish wine, they give you different types of wine, and you say, yeah, it's okay, it's pretty good, but I've had Hungarian wine, and that's the best, and it knocks all these things out. So too, when the Hungarian wine, meaning the Mashiach, comes for those people who have not had Hungarian wine, so it's going to be, I guess, extra spicy for them. But for those people who have been learning the teachings of Rabbi Nachman, so it's not going to be a whole new revelation for them. It's not going to be something that's very, very overwhelming or different than what they've already been learning. And this Rabbi Nachman alluded to when he said the only difference between me and the Mashiach is that nobody listens to me and everybody's going to listen to the Mashiach. So, good. So now he says like this, Tevin, Zebechina Tavuna, that this word for straw is very interesting. Why do you say you're going to bring straw to Afarayim? Because Tevin is the root of the word Tavuna, which means deep Torah understanding. Like the Pasuk says, Tavuna tin tzarech, that it says understanding is going to preserve you. Like deep Torah understanding, it's going to create peace in your life. It's going to protect you. It says in the Gemara that a person that he learns Torah, that even when he's not learning, the Torah that he learned is protecting him now. Because they understood that the real thing that Moshe wanted to bring to the Jewish people was deep Torah understanding. That was what was lacking. That they were screaming out to Hashem, but Rabbi Nachman said they weren't able to speak to Hashem. But they're screaming out to Hashem. It's clear from the Torah they were screaming out to Hashem. So what does it mean they weren't speaking? So Rabbi Nachman explains later in Likutey Moharan that not all speech is speech. Not every time you talk, it's called speech according to the Torah. Only speech which is heard is called speech. And that speech which is true, meaning that's resulting from deep Torah understanding, that's the speech that's heard. So Moshe Rabbeinu, who is emblematic, he is the full archetype of deep Torah understanding, that the Arizal teaches that he is the human manifestation of what's called the sphere of Da'at. He represents higher consciousness. And that's what he was trying to bring to the Jewish people. And because of that, their speech became speech. And now their Torah was able, their tefillah was able to be heard. Like Rabbi Nachman says in the first Torah, Likutey Moharan, if your tefillah is not getting answered, your prayers are not getting answered, learn more Torah. And we're getting one of the secrets to that right now. It's because to the degree that the tefillah is true, to that degree it gets answered. To the degree that your speech is coming from deep Torah understanding, to that degree, you're able to create these unifications and draw down an answer to your prayers. This is why they said, because when the Jews are not carrying out the Ratzon of Hashem, like in our generation, and like they say in the Midrash, the Mashiach's only going to come in a generation that's completely off. So just like Moshe Rabbeinu, he's coming to a generation that was completely off. Rabbi Nachman says that this is the proof for the lower of a spiritual level that you're initially on, the greater the rabbi you need. Where you might think to yourself, I can just get a basic stam Google rabbi. Rabbi Nachman says, no, just because the Google rabbi knows more than you, it's actually not, doesn't work like that. The further you feel from Hashem, the greater the rabbi that you need. Okay? So obviously Moshe Rabbeinu is the greatest rabbi who ever lived. So it must be that they were at such a low spiritual level, like Chazal teach, they were at the 49th gate of Tumah, that if they would have went one more gate lower, they had one lower spiritual level, they never would have gotten out of Mitzrayim. There would be no Jewish people now. We would have been extinct and annihilated. There would have been a Shoah before the Shoah. But Moshe Rabbeinu was able to bring them deep Torah understanding, and he did that by bringing them the quality of speech. Thus, they're likened to afar, to dust. That's why I said you're going to bring it to Afarayim, because the Jewish people at that point were considered like dust because of their low spiritual level. So, how are you going to bring them to a higher Torah, to a higher spiritual level? How are you going to bring them from such a low level to litvuna Torah, to really deep Torah understanding? Was that Tevin? Lashon Tevuna Torah. And this is what's Teven, this is straw, which is the Lashon, the language of deep Torah understanding. You're bringing it to this people that they're only on the level of dust. They're on such a low spiritual level. He said, Amrei Anashe. People say, Hainu, Ayadam Amirot. So Rabbi Nachman is doing a very interesting exposition from the fact that Moshe responded, people say. That the first initial response of Moshe was that people say, Hainu, meaning, Ayadam Amirot, Ayadam Dibur Shal Ish Yisraeli. He was responding to them that through saying, through speech, through the dibur, through the speech of a Jewish person, who me'ir lo lachol mekamot tzarich lasot teshuva. He's going to be able to know all of the different places that he needs to do teshuva, all the different places that he needs to excel and to elevate spiritually. He's going to get all of that through saying, through speech. That's my weapon. The Mashiach is going to bring to the Jewish people speech. He's going to cause all the Jewish people to talk to Hashem. As a result of that, no matter what spiritual level that they're at, they're going to rise up and out and to achieve this thing that's called deep Torah understanding, or Matan Torah, Lamata Yarka. So I'm going to bring to them to the vegetable market. Why is it Lamata Yarka? Yarka hu bechina teshuva. Because Yarka, the word for vegetable in Hebrew, in Aramaic means to throw. Rabbi Nachman explains elsewhere in Likutey Moharan that the concept of throwing is the concept of teshuva, because what's thrown down now wants to go back up to the place that it was thrown. So why are you bringing it here? Because I'm going to bring it to the vegetable market. So he was alluding to the fact that they're going to be able to do yarka. They're going to be able to throw themselves back up to Hashem through saying, through speech. They're going to be able to do complete teshuva. And maybe this is the secret of this month, that the king is in the field. We know that Rabbi Nachman said, what's the best place to eat bodedut? What's the most effective place? In the field, that all the vegetation there is going to assist you even in your prayer. It's going to bring out all of the Torah that you're trying to bring out, all of the tefillah that you're saying. And when you bring out that speech in the field, Hashem's going to hear it. And all the more so in this month that the Alter Rebbe said that the king is in the field, right? So what's going to bring us this? We know that this month is the month of Teshuvah, and we know this month is the month of rectifying the Brit. It's the sphere of Yesod that's the focus of this month. So we see from Rabbi Nachman, it's through speech in the field. And you have a greater ability now to get answered because of that. And this is all alluded to in this story here, that it's speech that brings a Jew to Teshuvah. Kamo shamru hamidrash, like the Midrash says, v'yarek et hachinav, that Avram Avinu said to his the people who were in his military, he was training them to go fight the 4 kings. Now the Midrash says elsewhere that in truth he didn't have 400 military operators like the Midrash alludes to, but he only had one who was equal to all of them, and that was Eliezer, his servant. Later on in this Torah, Rabbi Nachman is going to explain that Avraham and Eliezer actually are the manifestation of this higher and lower unity. That the higher unity, meaning the transcendence of Hashem, the aspect of Hashem that he's completely one despite what it looks like down here, this is related to Avram Avinu. And this is really his chiddush that he brought to the world. And Eliezer represents the lower unity, which he's going to explain later in the story, represents halakha. And that the upper unity represents the Brit Milah, sexual purity. That we have to achieve a high level in the area of halakha, knowledge, and also in the area of sexuality, to rectify sexuality. And when you've done both, you've achieved the higher and lower unity, then you're able to come to deep Torah understanding. And all of that begins, whether it's learning halakha or whether it is coming to a higher level of rectified sexuality, all that comes through Rabbi Nachman says speech, through hibodedut. And this is, Rabbi Nachman says this is all alluded to in this midrash, because when he was training Eliezer, or he can't Parshat Shoftim, he read to him Parshat Shoftim. What is saying Parshat Shoftim? Shezerez lasot teshuva. That whole parsha is about doing teshuva. Ki Parshat Shoftim nemar al teshuva. Because it says there that if there's anyone among them who's afraid or faint-hearted, and it's explained in the Gemara that why is a Jew afraid? Where does his anxiety come from? It doesn't come from an anxiety disorder. It comes from doing averot. Hayera me'avera shibado. He has fears because his fear has gone into exile because of the averas that he's committed. So as a result of that, he is now afraid. And that's why, according to the Torah, when Jews go out to war in the military, we want tzaddikim to go out. Now, you might say to yourself, yeah, but they're not as militarily expert as, let's say, somebody else. However, that's not really our strength. Our strength is that Hashem is with us. And so, are you afraid? It's an indicator of, are you holding at a certain spiritual level? Because the higher spiritual level that you're at, the less you're afraid of people, places, and things, and the more that you only have this deep awareness in all of Hashem. That's what people say. Bring the vegetables to the vegetable market, meaning meaning through the speech, through talking to Hashem of every Jew, lamata yarka, for all the places that a person needs to come to teshuvah, his speech itself is going to guide him on how to do it. That he's able now to return back to Hashem. This is the concept of tshuva that's fitting. Tshuva that comes, it's balanced to tshuva. Because the speech that he has is going to enlighten him, specifically where he needs to do teshuva in the places that he has done averot in the past, where he needs to now rectify those things. Because we know that there's a concept in the Torah of mida keneged mida. So if the avera that you did in the past has to do with, let's say, atheism, then Hashem is going to bring you to have to rectify it through deep faith. If it's through blemishes or pagam in the area of sexuality, so you're going to have to rectify through the Brit and so on and so forth. Let me see what time it is. Yeah, okay, this is a good place to stop. Bezrat Hashem, next time we're going to see that this speech that we need is not possible naturally. You're going to need to acquire another quality before this speech brings you to teshuva in all your ways. So it's not just talking to Hashem. You're going to need to acquire something that gives your speech, so to speak, the koach that you need to actually work. It's like, trying to make a good example. It's like, for instance, you buy a gun, chas v'shalom, you buy a weapon, but that weapon, you need bullets, right? So without the bullets, the weapon's really ineffective. So too, your speech is your weapon. That's the weapon that shows you all the places that you need to return to Hashem, and it's going to show you how to return to Hashem, which is unbelievable, that you have this sort of innate sense of how to get close to Hashem just by talking to Him. Yet, on the same token, you need to first acquire bullets or some type of ammunition that allows your weapon to be effective. Bezrat Hashem, the next lesson that we do is going to speak towards that. And just to let everybody know, Baruch Hashem, the classes in Israel have been very, very successful. And almost every single weekend, we've set up another class. We've been watching those on Sunday nights. We have another class now, Malava Malka, Saturday night. So this is our first Malava Malka shiur. Obviously, if you're in America, you're not going to be able to see it when it's happening, but you can watch it the next day, Bezrat Hashem. And as well as another class set up the weekend after that. So just want to let everybody know here that things are going really well for Tzion, and these teachings are really being felt in a very deep way, not just in America now, but also in Israel. And Bezrat Hashem, it's going to be throughout the world sooner than later. And we're going to have the Geula Bimerav Yamena very soon. Does anybody have any questions from today's lesson?
I do, Rabbi.
Go ahead, Ladero.
I know you my daughter said hi.
Hi.
You mentioned chatzot. I'm not sure if this is exactly regarding the lesson, but I'm having some issues, I guess some challenges getting up for chatzot. So I guess, do you have any remedies, any strategies for being able to get up for that time?
Yes. Okay. First thing is that chatzot is later now, and it's getting later and later. So whereas, let's say, a month ago, you had to get up by 3:30 a.m. to do this, and obviously it's very difficult. Now if you finish it by 4:40, and it only takes about 10 minutes to say when you start doing it, so you can get up an hour later, so 4:30. Obviously, it's still very early, but just as a practical note, as the months are going on now, it's going to get later and later and later. So maybe that's going to help you. But with any spiritual madriga that you want to attain, it's impossible to attain in a lasting way without praying for it. Especially the advice of Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Natan once said, anything good spiritually that you do is going to be difficult. Anything which Rabbi Nachman says to do is going to be even harder. Not because he gave harder advice, but because what he's saying to do is greater. So therefore, you're going to have a greater challenge to accomplish it, but not to look at it as it's like a natural phenomenon. It's a spiritual phenomenon. So you're going to need to pray to Hashem and ask him for help. So let's say, for instance, you really want to do chatzot every day. So part of your hipodadut should be asking Hashem, please give me the koach to get up early in the morning and to have energy. Please give me the motivation to even want to get up in the morning to do this. Help me to accomplish this. And if you pray enough on it, then you're going to be able to achieve it. So this is what I would say, that you need to pray for it. So between that and the fact that it's getting later, hopefully those two things together should help you. Also, part of your prayers, which we're learning would be from this lesson, would be take the Torah that Rabbi Nachman teaches about chatzot, that Rabbi Natan teaches about chatzot, and turn it into tefillah. Like for instance, some of the things that Rabbi Nachman says is that tikkun chatzot is mesugal. It's very propitious for bringing the geula. So if you know that the redemption is going to come in the merit of the Jewish people, that they say tikkun chatzot, so that's very, very good motivation to want to get up and say it. He also says elsewhere that there are times that a person goes through things in his life and he has no recourse, he has no way to achieve tikkun for this except through giving a pidyon and nefesh, which is that you give a tzaddik a certain amount of money as a pidyon for what you're going through. He prays for you and does certain tikkunim, and as a result of that, you're able to have a tikkun. But he says that when you do, I'm not sure if it's in Sefer Midot or he says in Likutey Moharan, but when you do tikkun chatzot, it's literally mamish like you're doing a pidyon and nefesh. So you don't have to give up any money and you don't have to go find the tzaddik. You can just get up early and do it. So so those are obviously two big things that are going for you. And then Rav Natan, he speaks about the fact that tikkun chatzot rectifies emunah, tikkun chatzot perfects your da'at, your knowledge that everything comes from Hashem and his unity. Tikkun chatzot causes the Sitra Achra to vomit up the souls of Jewish people who are trapped in the klippas and to bring them to want to do teshuvah and to come back to Hashem. So, by Rabbi Nachman, chatzot was huge. It was his students, for them, chatzot in some ways was just as big as Hippolyta did. So these are some pieces of advice I would have.
That helps. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome, Mudera. Any other questions?
I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
It takes me like 45 minutes to do tikkun chatzot. So I'm wondering, what are you doing that is only taking you 10 minutes?
Hebrew is faster. I'm not sure what you're saying.
Well, I have the sweetest hour. So, it's got like the Lamentations and it's got, it has the Mishnah at the end.
Right. First of all, the main thing is the Lamentations. So I don't know how long the Mishnah takes at the end, but there's no Mishnah in the Sephardic Siddur. Just the more you say it, the faster. If you say it in Hebrew, if you keep doing it every day or almost every day, you could do it in like 15 minutes. Maybe it's an exaggeration to say 10, maybe 15 minutes you could do it. But it's not a benefit to do it faster. The tzaddikim, they were known for doing chatzot for hours on the floor. So if you do 45 minutes, it's amazing. I wouldn't stop.
My other question is, are you going to start doing Likutey Halachot again? Because I really missed that.
Good. I'm glad you gave me the suggestion. I do want to do it again. The thing is that my books are coming across the world to Israel. So I actually don't have any of my books besides my Likutey Moharan that we're working on right now because I anticipated we would be here. And I thought about taking Likutey Halachot as well. And I don't know why I made a terrible decision to keep it in America and have it come with all the rest of my books. So I'm hoping those books come next week. And then Bezrat Hashem, we can get back to doing the Likutey Halachot classes again and picking up where we left off.
So if I find somebody in Israel that will lend you one, can we start?
Wow. Yeah, we could start.
Okay.
Start.
I know some Brez lovers in Jerusalem.
I also, it's possible that I am going to start working in a yeshiva at night in Jerusalem. And that's going to change the schedule because the only way I'm able to give these classes that you're able to see it is if I go to sleep very early and get up early. And obviously, if I get that job, that's not going to be possible anymore. So I'm going to have to re-strategize. Either it's going to be like it used to be, where I teach a lesson that you could see it in the morning when you guys wake up, like I did with the Likutey Halachot lessons in the past. And then I can also get back to teaching Likutey Halachot then, so it kind of fits in well with that as well. And so that's probably in the near future anyway, that I would have to make that change.
Awesome. And then I just want to share an experience I had today because it's exactly aligned with the teaching today. But I was saying to Hillam, and while I was saying to Hillam, something arose in my consciousness that I had to do teshuvah for. And it was like, it arose with the knowledge that I had to do teshuvah. So I stopped saying the Tehillim right then. And I called out to Hashem and I did teshuvah. And literally, like, I felt the whole thing release.
Wow.
In that moment. And it had to do with sexual, the sexual impurity.
Wow.
What you were talking about. So it was like when you were saying that in the talk today, I was like, oh my gosh, that just literally happened.
Wow.
So yeah.
Amazing.
Just a little testimony to the teaching.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. I love those. Those are the best. Rabbi Nachman says that later in the Likutey Moharan that Tehillim is mesugel for teshuvah. That the best part about Tehillim is it helps a Jew do teshuvah. So maybe that's what you experienced. Very amazing. Very deep.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Okay. Any other questions before we sign off here? Nope.
Rob, I have a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Do I have so what if I'm just up that late? Is like part of the thing that I
Oh no, you don't have to you don't have to go to sleep and get up. You can just, if that was I forgot to mention that was a good piece of eitzah. In olden generations, when the lights went out, meaning when the sun went down, there was nothing to do. They didn't have electricity like we have now, where everything's lit up. So it wouldn't make sense for them, like work-wise, to go to sleep late. So they went to sleep right after they had dinner. That's very uncommon nowadays. So we often have to get up for chatzot. But or it's difficult for us to get up for chatzot. But because we're usually up now, many people at halachic midnight. So if you're already up, then you can do chatzot right when midnight comes in. I used to do that. That's how I started doing chatzot.
Okay. Thanks, Rob.
Good question. Thank you for the reminder. Anybody else before we sign off? Okay. Everybody have an amazing day. If you don't see me for another class, hopefully we'll do another one tomorrow. But if not, hope you guys have an amazing, happy Shabbat. Please pray that the people who are trying to get to Uman for Rosh Hashanah are able to go. Obviously, with COVID, it's a very fickle situation. And even though right now everything looks good, this is there's a lot at stake here. There's a reason why we weren't able to go last year and why this year is also at stake. It's a big thing that we're able to go to Uman for Rosh Hashanah. And I have very big intentions to pray for all my students. So by the kever of Rabbeinu. So please pray that we're able to get there. And Saturday, it's going to be Shabbat by most of you. So while we're still doing Malava Malka here, but the next day, tune into the class, Bezrat Hashem. Hopefully it's something you connect to. And, everybody have an amazing, amazing night, an amazing day, and good luck doing Chatzot. Maybe you could just do it tonight and take one in the bag with you to Shabbat. Okay? Everybody have a great day.
Thanks, Rabbi. You as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.